Is your domain name registered with Google? It won't be for long. This is MacVoices. Today's MacVoices is supported by Factor, America's #1 ready-to-eat meal kit. Go to factormeals.com/MacVoices50 and use the code MacVoices50 to get 50% off. Welcome to MacVoices. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. Folks, the MacVoices Live panel wraps up this particular conversation with commentary on Google getting out of the domain name registration business and why it maybe shouldn't have been a surprise to much of anyone. Then we take a look at some of Spotify's recent news and changes and try to determine whether it will make them competitive. Let's go back and let the panel do the talking. I mean, I'm glad to hear you guys back me up a little bit. There's nothing wrong with someone squeezing as much life as they possibly can out of things.
Of course not.
You know, I know that Apple sometimes gets dinged for, well, to Webb's point, was it only an iPhone 10? And, you know, now they're going to be, we're on the 14, we're going to be going to the 15. And so, you know, why are they cutting me off? Well, you know, I'm not an engineer, so I can't say the chips aren't built for it or whatever, or it's just a business decision. But at some point, you know, why is Apple obligated to give you something? You know, certainly Android doesn't feel obligated to do that. But you know, there are times that, yeah, it's something new. It's something new, and you're asking, and I tell you what, I don't think it was this show, but I think it was another one. I still have a MacBook Air, one of the first ones with one port. Okay. Mm-hmm. And by today's standards, it seems to take forever to boot. It really doesn't take that long, but by today's standards, it does. But it's still a perfectly useful machine. I've frozen it, and I use it for one thing and one thing only. Jim's holding one up that keeps phasing in now. Mm-hmm. I use it for one thing and one thing only, and that is watching webinars and occasionally recording webinars. And it's fine. It does. Mm-hmm. It's a great single-use machine. I think if I tried to trade it in, they might give me $25, or I may have to pay them $25 to get it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so, you know, yeah, fine. I mean, I keep no secure information on there, and I keep it as minimal as possible, but I do put it on the internet. Oh. Thought that was commentary there from Mr. Fuccio. You know, but these machines can be repurposed for things. The biggest concern is, if you're going to take them on the internet, is the security issues. Other than that, you can run them until they run into the ground. And just to circle back for a second, that aged, 13 down to 10 for Meta. I mean, really, come on, guys. You know, what is this? You tell me all the protections and all the parental controls you're going to put in and everything. Why do you feel the obligation to go after the 10-year-old market?
Yeah, I agree.
Get them before there's the Vision Non-Pro.
Get them hooked on the product.
Yeah.
Do you think it'll hook them on the product, or you just think it'll hook them on the process? And then they'll be looking, you know, to something better?
I think depending on what the app experience is, like, you could, you know, and that the social aspects of, you know, connecting with other friends, you know, that also using the product kind of puts them in like an ecosystem of sorts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We're starting to run a little short on time, but I wanted to get everyone's reaction to Google shutting down Google domains and migrating everyone over to Squarespace.
Oh, wow. No, I just didn't even know this.
Oh, didn't you?
Yeah, news broke Monday, or no, broke last week.
15th, last 5 days ago.
Last week. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, why? Other than just the fact
what Google does.
Yeah.
Well, there's that, Jim. But you know, this just seemed to be a little strange to me, because it's the domain registration business doesn't seem to be that sophisticated. I know that it's not necessarily going to drive ad revenue, but why would you? I mean, because they were talking, I think, like 500,000 domains registered. No,
I'm sure.
No, I think they were talking about having 10 million domains that they transferred over.
Was okay. So 10 million domains, at whatever price they're charging for a domain. I know, but even by Google standards, that doesn't seem to be. I mean, I think that they said Squarespace's stock jumped after that, which obviously that's a heck of a revenue.
But I think this is more about Google just trying to improve their internal efficiency and looking around and asking themselves, why the hell are we in the domain business? And trying to, maybe having, large, maybe excessive number. I'm purely speculating here. Maybe they have an excessive number of employees on that, and rather than try to go through the fights of, what do you need and how many can we keep and can we lay off enough people, they just decide get out of the business entirely. Poof, it's gone. Squarespace, here it is. Here's a list of people, hire who you want, and you other guys, you have, opportunity to get a new job within Google in 90 days, or you're going to be laid off, and, boom, done with it. I think this is all about internal efficiency gathering than it is. But like somebody said, is, why were they in the domain business in the first place? And I read an article somewhere over the weekend that said that the reason they wanted to do that is they wanted to push the whole internet to using HTTPS and getting, so all the traffic would be, encrypted. So maybe they did that, mission accomplished, and even more reason, okay, we don't need this stuff anymore. Goodbye.
As someone who was a Google Domains customer, this does not surprise me. They kept it relatively quiet. They didn't really offer any hosting options rather than having your custom domain go right to your Blogger account. It just always seemed like a half-hearted effort, and Google has, quite frankly, deep sticks products that they put way more money into.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it just got to be an issue with Google that they got to that point where they either got to get into it deeper or liquidate out of it. And I think that was the option that they chose. And Squarespace was willing to take that burden away from them. They talked about it as an asset purchase. I'm wondering what the money was. I haven't seen any of that disclosed yet. I don't know if you guys have, but it just seems like a business decision to me that get out of it. It's low margin business. There are lots of competition. It doesn't do anything for Google's bottom line. Like I said, I think it's a business decision.
It's 10 million domains that are out there that are hosted by Google Domains. So Squarespace is going to get that. Squarespace is only going to honor the pricing for 12 months, and then they're going to raise those prices sky high, and then you're going to interesting to see if anybody sticks around after that.
But I mean, for Squarespace, that's 10 million more websites that they have a chance to basically convert that domain into hosting.
Right.
Exactly. Its ability to upsell. Right. And again, out of 10 million domains, I'd be really curious to know how many were active. How many were just parked. How many were just registered for somebody having the ability to get an email address. So, there's all sorts of, because I bet the other competition was probably WordPress, for, taking it over. Although their parent company, doesn't have much of a domain name server business, And then there's there's a Canadian company.
Cover.
Yes. With 2 cows is just Cover.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, so we'll see. I mean, I think, but again, to me, this is just a sign that, Google grew and it was so profitable and it was sick its fingers into everything. And, And now it's having to rationalize and retreat.
And there's so many registrars out there as it is anyway. I mean,
Yeah.
why Google really wants to be in that crowded business? They think they're moving their focus elsewhere.
Yeah. I mean, it was just a time where Google wanted to be everything to everyone. Now they're just kind of retreating back to what their core business is.
I mean, Google Workspace is huge. You know, G Suite. That's their bread and butter business on that end of the business. So, I mean, I remember when they first started the Google Workspace, they were giving out free accounts. I still have one. So, I mean, the business has changed just dramatically. I just don't see it. They don't need to be in that anymore.
One thing, though, that surprised me about handing this over to Squarespace is that Squarespace doesn't, at least not right now, they don't host in the traditional fashion. If there is a traditional fashion, you know, you can't take your, not easily, well, depending on whether you believe they're marketing or not, or how it's built. But you can't just take your WordPress site and move it over to Squarespace.
No, not at all.
It's proprietary.
Yeah. And so that, you know, I would have thought, I mean, Squarespace must figure they can do some conversions of people. Because if whoever said it, I'm not sure who said WordPress. I mean, that would have made a certain amount of sense if there had been a deal negotiated there. Because then, you know, you could just transfer it over. But with Squarespace, really, we'll see. And listen, I use Squarespace. I have sites on Squarespace. It's a fine platform, and there's a lot to be said for once you learn its metaphors. It can be a lot less geeky than WordPress.
That's the whole attraction to it. I have a family member who set up their website, and they opted to Squarespace because, you know, I started showing them WordPress. Oh, I don't want to. That's too complicated for me. Mm-hmm. So it's so user friendly that's what attracted it. I mean, Squarespace did mass amounts of advertising on podcasts and everywhere else. You don't see them as much anymore doing that type of advertising, but they're obviously still out there.
Yeah. Well, and David, the only thing I would say is, you know, as a Squarespace user, there was a little bit of a learning curve.
Yeah, there is that. Yeah,
but not. I mean, but definitely not as much as WordPress. Right. So, you have a lot more control in WordPress. Squarespace kind of limits you to things, and they've done a couple things, you know, in changing designs that okay, so now the design your website has had for the last 3 years, we're going to get rid of that design, but you might like one of these. And meanwhile, you've customized that design to the degree you can. And now all of a sudden has to, you know, so there are a lot of moving pieces here. It's going to be interesting to see what happens in, you know, like whoever said it, you know, in a year or so when the domains start coming due, and, you know, what options the folks are going to have as far as dollar numbers or having to go to the trouble of moving registrars. Yep. So we shall see. Today's Mac Voices is supported by Factor, America's #1 ready-to-eat meal kit. Go to factormeals.com/MacVoices50 and use the code MacVoices50 to get 50% off. Summer is here, and you're probably looking for some wholesome, convenient meals to support those days full of outdoor activity. Factor, America's #1 ready-to-eat meal kit, can help you fuel up fast with flavorful and nutritious ready-to-eat meals delivered straight to your door. You'll save time and eat well. With Factor, you can skip the extra trip to the grocery store and the chopping, prepping, and cleaning up too, while still getting the flavor and nutritional quality you need. Factor's fresh, never frozen meals are ready in just 2 minutes. So all you have to do is heat and enjoy, and then get back outside and soak up the warm weather. With Factor, you can rest assured you're making a sustainable choice. Factor offsets 100% of their delivery emissions, source 100% renewable electricity for their production sites and offices, and feature sustainably sourced seafood in their meals. This July, get Factor and enjoy eating well without the hassle. Simply choose your meals and enjoy fresh, flavor-packed meals delivered right to your door. Ready in just 2 minutes, no prep, no mess. Head to factormeals.com/MacVoices50 and use the code MacVoices50 to get 50% off. That's code MacVoices50 at factor.com/MacVoices50 to get 50% off. Thanks to Factor for supporting MacVoices. Let's wrap up with some fun things. How about it?
Let's have fun. Yes.
Spotify.
That's why we come here, Chuck. That's the only reason.
All right. Well, good. That's good. I'm glad. So let's hit some Spotify stories all at once. Spotify's see, I knew you'd love it. Spotify has been fined $5.4 million for violating GDPR data rules.
Wah.
Harry and Meghan, I guess, and Spotify are going their separate ways.
No business being on a podcast in the first place.
But they got their $20 million out of it, so they're okay.
No. We'll come back to that.
Okay.
Ooh. And let's also mention that just today, Spotify allegedly is going to finally get around to launching their hi-fi or lossless service, but at a substantial premium over what anybody else charges.
No surprise.
All right, have at it,
blame
guys.
Apple for all of it.
Yes.
Well, go ahead, Mark. I want to hear your opinion.
Yeah, Mark, I want to hear it.
Megan and Harry.
Okay, yeah. So the GDPR. I mean, I read into that. I saw it seems like a little technicality that maybe they're not as when users go in and say, "What data do you have on me, and how are you using it?" They were slow to respond. So, I mean, I don't think you can really criticize them about that, other than yes. They should respond faster, and that's why they get fined whatever it was, $5 or $6 million. That's a slap on the wrist. Meghan and Harry, that broke at the end of last week, and over the weekend, there's somebody at Spotify was quoted as saying they're just a bunch of effing grifters, because in 3 years, all they did is released 13 podcasts. So
it is one podcast, 17 episodes.
Yes, or they're a bunch of effing lazy grifters, I think is what they said. So okay. So obviously, so Spotify, we've talked about them before. They've had different rounds of layoffs. So again, they're trying to rationalize and their business and try to eke out some profits, because this year they're predicted to lose $2.48 a share, and next year's the Hail Mary pass, they're expected a 1 cent a share profit. So, there's obviously a lot of hope there. The stock has gone up a lot, rallied this year. Don't ask me why, but we'll talk about that later. So, the more important question I would ask is, now that Harry and Meghan, they've done their show on Netflix, they've shared more details in Harry's book, The Spare. What else do they have to offer? I mean, it seems like all their sharing dirt about the royal family is done, so will they just disappear into obscurity?
The British tabloid press won't let them do that. Mm-hmm. They're there for life. So
he's currently in a lawsuit with them anyway.
What was hacking phone data or something like that? Anyway, I'm sorry, Chuck.
Well, no, didn't I see something though that Meghan was allegedly, and maybe she did, I don't know, but she was supposed to produce a podcast about women, notable women or something, and with Serena, were they the ones that were done?
Yeah, Serena Williams.
Yeah, that was one. I forget. Okay. It's called Archetypes, I think was the name of the show, and it had like 12 or 13 episodes. And I think Serena Williams was the first. If don't quote me on that. I think she maybe had been the first kickoff for the series, but
best.
Yeah, I don't know.
And it launched about a year ago, but still, 13. Yeah. Chuck, you can rattle off a dozen shows, just between now and next morning when you go to bed and wake up. For them not to be able to do more than 13 shows in 3 years in 2021, so 2.5 or whatever.
Yeah.
Obviously, Spotify didn't get what they wanted and they canceled it.
Well, some of these high profile media people now are doing their own podcasts. Hoda from the Today Show, Chuck Todd from NBC and was doing the Chuck Toddcast. I'm sorry. And it's like, okay, so there are only so many people that you can interview, and they're doing these big production things, and and it's like, you guys, I mean, I think it's great that you can dig down into some niche stuff, but it just feels like they're kind of missing the point of what a podcast should be. But that may be a whole discussion for another time. Yeah. One thing I will throw another. This is an ugly URL, and I'm sorry, but it's just the one that came up. But apparently, one thing that is Spotify's not going to give up on podcasts because Trevor Noah is
Trevor Noah just
a weekly podcast. With the weekly podcast will focus on, quote, the hottest and most captivating topics of the moment.
Yeah. See how long that lasts.
I call bull. I mean, I think their biggest podcast property is Joe Rogan. I think everything else they're doing is second or third or fourth tier, and I really wanted to see I saw some excerpts on YouTube of the Joe Rogan JFK Jr. interview. I thought maybe they might open it up, for people to get them to sign in, but no, you have to register. And I said, nuts to you, and I just didn't see it. But there's a lot of other JFK Jr. interviews, all over the place. If people want to go and look, there's a great one with Jordan Peterson, and there are others out there. So back to the panel.
Yeah, but Spotify made a big bet on podcasts a few years back, and it had to say that it hasn't paid off is putting it very mildly.
Well, and we've completely ignored the one other one that I threw in there, and that is that they're allegedly going to bring out this hi-fi lossless tier, but I mean, now this is all rumored right now, but at like $20 a month, as opposed to what you can get from Apple and Amazon and Tidal and everybody else without.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I said earlier, I said freeloaders, was a problem, on that story. Spotify clearly has a problem. They have way too many freeloaders. They're about, this is from memory, about 85% of their download. They're 10% of their business. They're wildly unprofitable compared to, their money paying, customers. So I don't know if their money paying customers really care about, I didn't see the thing. Is it FLAC or lossless or just some other super high sampling rate?
They're just calling it hi-fi.
And no details about what hi-fi means?
Nope. All they said, it's not lossless.
Okay, so it's something that's better that we're not telling you how, and we want you to pay us another $20 a month on trust.
Yes, for trust, they will have you pay twice as much as the competition.
And they're calling it Supremium.
That's related. That's next on the periodic chart of the elements. That's right after unobtainium.
Yeah. Yeah, I said to Spotify, good luck with that.
So Eric, did you tell me do I remember that you were a Spotify user?
No.
Okay, Web was.
I was, and it was because one of my cars, the Tesla, had a Spotify subscription, but within the last year they went to Apple Music, so I just moved over to Apple Music in the car. I don't have to connect it's not through my phone and all that, and I really like it. As a matter of fact, I was listening to it tonight. I was kind of amazed that I was listening to a Jimi Hendrix song, and I was amazed at how clear it sounded. So anyway, I was on Spotify, did it for a year. let that expire and stuck with my Apple Music because my Apple One account. I was already paying for it anyway. So,
Brian, Spotify? No,
No, that's Spotify for me.
Okay. I guess there are people that either are so invested in Spotify that they will pay this rather than switch over. Although there are some interesting little programs out there to move your Spotify playlists over to Apple Music, but it just every time a Spotify story pops up, I just have the impression they're kind of like clawing at things, trying to find lightning in a bottle. That they hit with Joe Rogan and whoever said it, that was a good investment. It seems to have actually paid off for them. But all these other things, they just don't seem to be able to get their act together. So we're a little bit over time, but I want to make sure we got to, because that's just so much fun. Mm-hmm. So let's go around and let folks know where they can find you, and then we'll get out of here. So how about if we do last in, first out with Mr. Eric Bolden? Eric, glad you could make it even for just a little while. What's the best way for folks to connect with you when the power's on?
I can be reached on Mastodon at eabolden@techhub.social.
Thank you, sir. And next week, we want a new picture of the peach.
I'll have to water it. It's so dry here. It's like we have to hydrate it. It's just a little essence of peach. Throw a bunch of water on it. Expand it a little.
Hydrated. We want a peach sundae. Mark Fuccio. I'm not sure if he's a bull or a bear tonight. Where can folks find you?
I don't know if I'm a bull or bear either. We'll have to see what Powell says in these next 2 days in front of the House and the Senate, and if he scares the markets. But best way to find me always is on Twitter at MarkFuccio, all lowercase.
Thank you, Mark. Webb, you're going to have a hard time outdoing yourself on that shirt. I mean, I love that shirt and the tie. I love it.
Yeah, well, with the white collar to go with it. So.
I know. It's just, it's stunning. And is the suit gray or is it?
It's kind of brown.
Like a tan. Tan. Yeah. It's good looking outfit. Good looking outfit.
Thank you.
Where can folks connect with you for sartorial advice?
Best not to, but you can find me Web Bixby at twit.social or Web Bixby at that other service that we dare not speak of. So on the Twitter. So
thank you, Webb. Brian Flanigan-Arthurs, thank you so much for being here. I don't even know what to say except happy graduation, even though you didn't graduate, but good job in getting them out the door. Where can folks connect with you?
A couple of places. Mastodon. So add Brian8944 at mastodon.cloud, and then also Twitter at Brian8944.
Thank you very much, Brian.
Thank you for having me.
The other guy with the tie, Ben Roethig. Ben, good to have you. Where can folks connect with you?
Well, Chuck, you can find me on your social media of choice at Ben Roethig. My website, roethig.tech. On Thursday nights on David Ginsburg's In Touch with iOS. And Thursday and Friday on the British Tech Network on the Big and Mac shows. And, of course, here.
Thank you, Ben. Good to have you.
Oh, it's always good to be here, Chuck.
Mr. Ginsburg, the guy with all the colored buttons over in the corner of his screen. Where can folks connect with you?
Roadcaster. You could find me at In Touch with iOS at intouchwithios.com. YouTube channel is youtube.com/intouchwithios. On social media, I'm on DaveG65 in most places, Mastodon, Twitter, and Instagram. And you find me on the Mac Show on Fridays. And thanks for having me.
Thank you, David. Last but absolutely not least, Mr. Move himself, Jim Ray. Jim, where should folks connect with you?
If the power is on, you can find me on the web at provue.com, PROVUE. You can also find me on Mastodon at ProVueJim at techhub.social. And if the power is not on, then you'll just have to come up the street and say, "Moof."
I think we may have just given you a permanent nickname, Mr. Moof. I like
Moof.
that. All in favor.
Just like Mr. Bean, Mr. Moof.
Mr. Moof. Oh, we have a couple people voting for it, Jim. So
it's a name with a long tradition in the Apple world. So
yeah. You could do a lot worse. Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
named after a dog cow.
Yeah.
Oh, a converged device.
Folks, I'm Chuck Joyner. This is MacVoices Live. We do this craziness every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, whatever time it is, wherever you are. We've had a great time having some folks in the chat room tonight. We'd love to have you join us next Tuesday and the next Tuesday and the next Tuesday, because we do this constantly. Until the next time, and as always, thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with MacVoices Magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices, or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you Mac Voices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.